Hello, everyone, and welcome to WorkDoneLive. Here today with Kirsten Campbell, as usual, who heads up the Campbell Agency and is a master at explaining, persuading, and strategizing pretty much anything for her clients. My name is Joe Rogers, and my company is WorkDone, which is a best practices corporate memory and automation platform, which operates at the intersection of knowledge management and process automation. And today, we're joined by Dr. Stephanie Rosso, who is COO of the bestnotary.net, but she wears a lot of different hats. She's a child psychiatrist by training and a leader of mental health providers, and is heavy into process improvement. So she does a lot of different things. Her company, bestnotary.net, provides mobile and remote public notary public services pretty much anytime, anywhere in the United States. So I'd like to welcome everybody out there in the metaverse. This is Work Done Live, where we discuss all aspects of the future of work. So if you're out there and want to ask a question, please feel free to drop a message in the chat, and we'll try to respond in a timely way. So let me turn off that. And let's see, how do we look on LinkedIn, Kirsten? I don't see it.
Stunning as always, I would have to say.
We got all three of us, right? Fantastic.
No.
Okay, so Stephanie, I don't know, my intro was a little light. Could you welcome, first of all?
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
I'm excited to be here. I'm excited for us to talk about the ways that work can evolve and how we can balance processes and feeling good about our work.
Feeling good about our work. Could you elaborate a little bit more on your background?
Sure. So I'm a child psychologist, and last week I celebrated 17 years at a children's hospital. So I have evolved in some ways from a clinician to one of our leaders who oversee $20 million in services in Alameda County and have 130 staff. And so I'm involved in how do we improve our processes. I see my role as a leader to be someone who removes obstacles so that my staff can do their best. I don't see myself as a top-down, except for some regulations and rules from the county and the state. But mostly I want to remove obstacles and empower my staff to do what they do best and to make things easier for them. So I'm involved in our electronic medical record. If I can reduce a click and make things more efficient and reduce the pain that people experience in doing their documentation, then they can focus on their work, which is providing support and services to the highest risk, most under-resourced families in Alameda County. So I balance this, how do we make process improvement and also feel really good about the work that we're doing. Our work with the Best Notary, we want to be as efficient as possible, but we also want to create a culture where our staff feel really good about the work they're doing. And we are starting to expand and grow, which is really exciting, and become a social enterprise where we provide opportunities to people who've been left out of the marketplace. So autistic people, returning vets, stay-at-home moms who want to work and have some flexibility, but need to not do it in a kind of 9-to-5 way, maybe. How do we find a way to give opportunities to people who have talents and skills, but have been overlooked? And so, there are many people that live in under-resourced neighborhoods who haven't had opportunities. I've lived it firsthand working on high school campuses where there's really talented people that don't know how to or don't have opportunities to join the workforce. So I'm really excited about how we can use technology to even the playing field and to give people opportunity to join in spaces that they have been left out before.
Wow. That's a mouthful. So you're working pretty closely with like Alameda County Did I hear that?
Yes, we have a contract with Alameda County to provide mental health services. So that's one of my roles. Yeah.
And how is, I'm just curious, working, working with government usually. Yeah, okay. I don't need to finish my question.
Right. There's a lot of rules and regulations. I will say that in that domain, we are under something that's called EPSDT, which is a certain kind of funding, which means that we have the flexibility to really meet families where they're at. So we can meet them. I was in a park earlier today, meeting a family, and I can go to their school and I can do things in a different way than the traditional kind of private practice or private insurance model, because some of our families really need something a little different. So I don't appreciate the paperwork and some of the rules and regulations, but I do appreciate being able to be flexible to meet the needs of families. So
Sure,
yeah,
sure.
it's a balance.
Yeah. And I'm no shortage of opportunities for process improvement.
Oh yes, constantly. So we as a hospital started becoming lean certified probably 8 or 9 years ago. So using the Toyota method of management to really think about how we can become better and more efficient. So that was a really great process. And what I appreciated about it was, okay, so I'm a leader, but I'm also a provider. And, but in that room, everyone is as an equal and has an equal voice and has something to contribute, and just take a week out of our crazy schedules to be able to sit down and problem solve creatively together, and have this idea that we can play with it, we can try it out, we can draw, we can create something to make the system work better, was really powerful. And we set, I think we had like every 3 months we had a Kaizen that they kind of built on each other. And that no idea was crazy, just throw it out there, like it's okay. And I think there was something very freeing about that, that we could kind of problem solve creatively. And those weeks were really intense, but really fun. And so I bring that kind of idea to the best notary, in that, for example, an hour ago, we were talking about hiring someone, and I said, well, let's bring in the people who are going to be supervising that person and who will be working with them on the front lines, right? Because I can have an idea, our CEO can have an idea, but we really need to be close to the people who are doing the work, to have their input, because I know that I only have my perspective and I need the input of others. So I think there's lots of different ways that we can look at process improvement as a creative endeavor, and that we have all the voices at the table contributing and people feel really excited about it. So.
Well, bravo, good for you. It's sometimes there's in larger organizations, especially older organizations, you're fighting against the culture, and it's, if you can actually, and I would imagine like in a hospital there's a lot of subcultures and different varying levels of resistance. So the fact that you were able to pull that off is quite phenomenal. It means that you had support from executive management, I think, is what that means.
You absolutely have to have buy-in at every level. You have to have buy-in from the executive level. You have to have buy-in from frontline staff to feel like this is worth it, and that it matters. And so you need, and it's not easy. There's definitely people who are going to resist change. Change is very hard. And trying to find out what is the smallest step that will make a difference, that will relieve something that can lead to another one. You want to make big changes, and sometimes that can feel too much and overwhelming. But how do you And if people have participated in creating the solution, they're more likely to try it out, right?
Absolutely.
They're more likely to feel like, oh, I contributed to this, I participated in this, than if it just comes from me saying, here, you have to do this.
Absolutely.
So the more buy-in, and sometimes that means going really slow, and that can feel really hard. But it's best sometimes to slow down, take a breath, get buy-in from everyone to move forward. So change is hard though. It's really tough.
You got to balance the need to get a consensus with sometimes you actually have to push. But it's if it's all of one or all of the other, chances are it's not going to be it's going to be suboptimal.
Yes, well, and mental health providers can process things to death. We can talking about the change and what the change will do and how our feelings about the change and anticipate the feelings that will come from the change. And then we can talk about what the change might be, and then we can have the change, and then we have to talk about so not the easiest group to actually make change, because we have a lot of feelings about it and want to talk about it a long time. So it's a very particular thing. But there are ways, but I think there's important space for that in all areas and industries, right? To be able to understand the impact that the change will have on people and help mitigate some of that. Like one of the things that we do in our policy committee is we stop before we issue any policy, we stop and we have some questions that we ask. And some of the questions are kind of trauma-informed questions, but they also are based in understanding that some changes have a differential impact. So it stops and thinks about, does this change have a differential impact on one kind of employee or another, right? It may really benefit senior management, but what if it really impacts, our administrative staff, right? It may help one group of people, but really have a negative impact or even sometimes traumatizing on another group, especially when they have less power and make less money. It's really easy for us at the top to think, oh, this is great because it's good for me. But we have to stop and think about, wait a second, this may have impact on everyone. So let's slow this down and really think about, is there ways in which we can mitigate that?
Yeah, it's I've seen it before where people are generally they see their piece of the pie. They don't see the whole pie. So if they make a change and they think it's great, they're not late thinking about downstream, holistically what's going to happen, and sort of the full system. So good on you for that. It's really interesting in healthcare to be able to I'm kind of amazed that we're having this conversation, because I don't know, I had a couple projects with some hospitals out in Colorado in the ancient past, and it was there was great, nice people and all, but you could kind of tell the doctors were resistant to well, what are you putting on my desk? What are you changing? It's fine the way it is. I'll just write, it's but that has changed now. I mean, it seems like how doctors are now most or at least younger doctors are pretty techno savvy.
Right. Well, and that's one of the things I think that happened with the electronic medical record is there are some people who probably retired a year or two earlier than they may have planned. Right.
I see. Okay.
I think that it was a big technology change, and it was really hard for some people to make that leap to doing things electronically. When you've done things in a particular way for a long time, it's hard to make that shift. It's a challenge to implement new technology that requires skills that people haven't had before, right? And thinking and doing things in a different way. And when you've been doing things for a really long time, it can be hard to be open to, this might help this might help me, and it may provide better care, it may provide better work. And so there can be some resistance to that. And I think there are some generational things that can happen, that, I mean, we definitely had some people leave because it was just too much. The technology was too much. So that's unfortunate, because we lost some really great, wise minds, in clinical skills. So that's a challenge. How do you help bridge that to make things easier for people who are not tech savvy or not technology? That's not why they got into doing what they were doing. And so it's hard to see that technology can be really helpful, and has a learning curve, and then can make things better. But how do you get through that process, I think is tough.
Sure. I'll let Kirsten jump in.
Okay, yeah, you basically just described like every corporation pretty much, where it's like people at top make decision. Oh, right, them. Yeah, I guess we should think about that, like that kind of thing. So that's where I was laughing over here. So one of my first questions I'm dying to ask is, how can organizations actually increase their ability to learn quickly rather than just relying on trying to become efficient and maintaining efficiency? Because like we all know that, most organizational value comes through learning. And so that's like the resilience that'll carry them into the future. So what can organizations actually do to sort of put themselves on the right path?
I think that they need to think about first, what is their mission and vision, right? Where are they going? What is their true north? And I think the more you're clear on what that is, the easier it is sometimes. Why are we doing this? What's important to us? And I think maybe efficiency and earning money is the only thing, but hopefully there's some other things in there. And so I think you need to create a culture of humility, right? Where it's okay to acknowledge that the people at the top aren't the people who know everything, that we need to create this system where everyone has a voice and has something to contribute. How do we create, and I think leadership in different organizations need to finally start to think about the fact that most organizations were created in very male dominated, very white perspective, and like institutional racism exists. And we've kind of recreated these systems that I think we all need to take a pause and think about, who are we as an organization? What is important to us? And should we continue to go the way that we've been going? Or do we take a pause and really think through, what is our culture and the culture that we want to create? How do I want to create this as a collaborative learning environment where we're continuing to make process improvements, that we are valuing our staff? I mean, people say that, and people also, I think now there are lots of DEI committees, which are great, and it needs to go beyond just lip service and understanding, embracing why we want diverse voices. We want to include people that have been left out. And I think we have to start with that, I know, I'm sorry, I'm a psychologist, right? So we have to start with that, of how we got here, and really understanding the culture that was created. And then how do we rebuild that? And how do we build something, acknowledging the places where we've really continued to do things the old way, and stop and question it. And being truly open to feedback, and truly open to 360 reviews that look at not just how the people above you or the people lateral, but everyone looks at how your performance is, and being open to that, and in some ways being vulnerable. So I think we need to value our humans, and really think about the role and the culture that we're creating. So we can focus on efficiency, great. But if we are just about the bottom line and efficiency, and we forget the humans who are one of our main assets, right? They're really important. We're going to burn people out, and we're going to have a lot of turnover. And so, I really think that we have to stop and think about the culture that's being created and how we foster something different, and having the uncomfortable conversations about, is there a way in which we're perpetuating white supremacy or racism, or, how many corporations really have the leadership all look very similar. And they've come from, Ivy League, and they are, white males of a certain age, and they have great things to bring, but you need more voices and perspectives to come in and be open to being challenged, which isn't always an easy thing. So I think you have to start there. I think you have to start with unpacking and getting into it, and being able to acknowledge, as a white woman, I only know so much. I only know my perspective of my background, and I need to be humble and say, I need to learn from others. I need to ask other people for input, and we need to create that. And I think we get to efficiency when we have people feeling really good about their work, and we have the tools in place where, people perform better when they're excited about their job and they feel good about what they're doing. So I feel like we'll get there. The technology part, I feel like, is the easy part. But if you have really unmotivated people who hate their jobs, they either they're miserable and doing very little, or they're leaving and you have to go find someone else and train them up. And that's not efficient at all. So I think you have to start with the culture and the people. And really, COVID, I think, has helped us stop and think about what's important. Working from home, working in an office, where are my values? How do I do my best work? What's a good match? So I think we have to create that culture where people are being able to say and shine and do their best.
So you talk about doing the work of challenging long-held assumptions and practices, and humans don't like change. How do you, so oftentimes it's you need to have a change agent, someone who's going to sort of be the catalyst and make it happen. And that's usually not smooth. That's usually pretty bumpy. Do you play that role, or do you have someone on your team?
Sometimes. Sometimes I play that role, sure. Yeah, sometimes I can be a disruptor and hold on, how can we do this differently? And I think it's easier to do if people feel like you genuinely value them and care about them and care about their input. And sometimes, we do have to just make changes. And, I think so at the Best Notary, we have been doing things a particular way, in a very manual way. And it's hard to change, right? We have these manual processes that you do this and you send this and you do that. And for a little while, it's going to take more work and it's going to feel really cumbersome, but trying to hold true to, if we make these changes and we automate certain things, it'll be easier in the end and it'll be better for our customers. But holding people through that process can be really challenging. And so giving them a voice to share what's happening and having empathy to that it's hard.
Sure, but it has to be done.
Yeah. Sometimes we just have to do it, and sometimes I get to be the bad guy, and hope that we've had enough input that, and it may not be perfect, right? Perfect is the enemy of the good, right? It may not be perfect, but it'll help move us forward, and we can continue to learn and grow.
Sure. And I think we have to stop and acknowledge Max at this point.
Yes, Max. I know, Max.
Learn about organizational change.
Yes. Max is all about organizational change, huh? As long as it involves pets and getting attention and wet food, he is all for it.
So it's one thing to sort of enact change through the rank and file, but if you're, going up against sort of the existing power structure that may be, white and male, how do you handle that?
So you got to prove that somehow it's going to be worth it in the end with some metric. Right? So is this going to improve the bottom line? Is this going to reduce turnover? Is this going to reduce something? Sometimes you have to have something tangible. Some companies use Gallup surveys, right? Some people use different ways of getting input. So doing it just because it feels good probably isn't going to be the best motivator for many executive teams. But hopefully if it improves customer service, it improves outcomes in some ways. So I think you have to get some buy-in of why this is going to be beneficial. Why is this worth it? Why are we doing all this?
Sure.
Are we tormenting people with change just to do it? Because one person had an idea, but hopefully you have buy-in at different levels that this is something that needs to happen. And I think starting with one thing that can make a big difference and can get people excited helps.
Sure.
You can grow on that momentum, right? So
yes, the low-hanging fruit, the quick win, get the momentum. Absolutely.
If we do this little thing, watch, this improves and this feels better and you have this outcome, makes a difference, I think. So hopefully senior leadership, and that's where you get back to what's our mission and values, linking it to that. How is this going to help us move that forward? Where are we trying to go? That hopefully it's linked to that people can feel invested in that change.
Good. That makes sense.
So given that, how can people or organizations actually create an environment that appropriately strikes a balance between supporting trying out new ideas and being exhausted from constant change? Where's that balance?
I think it's a tough balance, because if you have a new initiative every day and you have to learn this new thing.
Is that Max? Did he press something?
Maybe.
Blame the cat. It's the cat's fault. You know it.
Well,
that was Stephanie, everybody. It was wonderful.
Yeah. I'm literally on the edge of my seat because I want to hear the answer to this question.
I know, right? I'm going to reshape my organization.
It's what's the term? Transformation fatigue.
I had a boss like that. It was one of those, every week it was a new harebrained idea that he read about, and you're just like, oh my God. And it's every once in a while there was a good one, and you're like, oh, this is awesome. But it was just that constant churn, and eventually you're just like, here we go again. And yeah, people get exhausted and they're just like, oh, here we go again. Okay. And so, yeah, that's where I'm like, what's the right balance for that?
This is interesting. I'm not sure what's happening.
We're just talk among ourselves while we wait for Stephanie to come zooming on back in.
I think so, but I'm curious who Maya was.
Well, I mean, I blame Max for this for sure. So the cat did something, and now Stephanie's trying to scramble to get back. Was it Max, Stephanie? We knew it was Max. We knew it.
Blame Max. It's always good to blame Max.
You know it. The conversation was getting a little too close to home for him.
He's like, change. I don't like change. I want you to stay home all the time and give me, no, you're talking about change. Max just wants to sleep and be on Zoom calls. So you were asking about the balance of change and exhaustion on change, because if you're constantly changing, it feels like you didn't learn from the last. So I think you have to make a change, right? Let it settle for a little bit, see how it works. And then again, get input. It has to be this kind of process, get input on what's another small tweak we can make to this to learn from what we've done. I think if you make one change and then you scrap the whole thing and you make another change that is completely different, and then you go and make another change that's completely different, it feels really disorganizing and really chaotic. But if you make a change and then you go, okay, what was good about this? What do we want to keep? What part do we want to make an improvement on? And you make another incremental change, it feels like it's building, and it doesn't feel like that last change was completely pointless. So I think it's hard though. I think you need time to sit with something, because if you're constantly in that wheel, it wears people out. So I don't know that there's a good answer. I'm curious, how do you guys approach that? How do you feel about making change constantly?
If you take an agile approach, which is my preference, it's small deliverables frequently, as opposed to waiting a year to get one big thing and cross your fingers that big thing is what you actually wanted or solves the problem. So but if you have an existing environment and you start twisting the knobs to see if you can improve efficiency, if you change two things at once and it makes it over, there's some sort of result, you don't know which change caused it. So it's kind of like better to do one thing at a time and see the result, and then like, oh, that didn't work, let's put it back, and then try the second thing, which it takes more time, but at least it's I don't know, the data that you get back is much better and actionable. Now there are, it's internet-based companies are they're not all that aggressive, or some are more legacy oriented and some are more future, sort of like they've got change built in. It's and everybody's accustomed to it. And a company like Google, it's like, they're constantly measuring everything and then reviewing the numbers, the results, and saying, oh, let's change this. That's where I learned about a nudge in the corporate cafeteria. They realized that if they put at the checkout counter, if they put apples there instead of Milky Way bars, people would eat apples more. It just, had a better effect. So just small stuff like that, but it's like, it actually ends up having a big impact. And, there's I forget the exact saying, but if you just do 1% more every day, after like a year, it's some crazy percentage increase. But, it sounds small. It's like, okay, I'll do 100 push-ups tomorrow.
Right.
Well, maybe not 100, but, and then 101. And then I guess it would be 100 and what's 1% of 101? It's like 1. So it's on, but eventually, it's like you get to 110, 1% is 11. So it starts to snowball. Change is very tricky. Change management is it used to be kind of ignored. It's like, oh, let's just put this software out there and people use it. But you could build like the coolest application, and if the users didn't adopt it and they just rather stay on their green screen, then you failed. So, yeah, and you hit the nail on the head earlier. It's like I used to have a sort of a contest to name the system, and all the workers would put in their selection for the name, and somebody would get picked, and that would be a good name. And the adoption rate just from doing something like that, which costs nothing, it's like through the roof. Like everybody's like they had ownership of this thing that was built, and it's really. I mean, it kind of surprises me that that sort of thing isn't done more frequently. But there's ways, you know. It's just gathering input. You don't even have to necessarily act on it. You just have to listen, and so people feel like they've been listened to. And you know, my background was in enterprise content management, and some time ago, like basically the paperless office. And there's so many times I would be talking with the workers who had stacks of paper on their desk, and they had no faith at all that what we were trying to do was gonna work. And then afterwards, it's live, and the paper that was on their desks is mostly gone. And you know, this one lady I'll never forget, Fargo, North Dakota. She said, "Joe, don't tell anybody, but your system's great. I don't want to go back." It's like, all right, it's very gratifying. Now pay my invoice. Yeah, change. And I think, you know, the whole topic of learning organizations, it's like, if you can get people used to doing that review after the change and say like, what worked, what didn't? Okay. And then like maybe once a month is probably too much, but once a quarter is probably good. People can handle that. Yeah. And then they get used to that sort of cadence, and okay, what's coming down the pipe now? It's there's always the people who are like, you know, this is just busy work, or they're just change for change's sake. But if you handle it right, it's not. I mean, people can feel the difference, and then people get really excited. It's not just a 9 to 5. They're like living the mission. They're in it. So I don't see that very often, but I have seen it, and it's such a joy when that happens.
I like one of the things that you said there. I think humans giving some control and also some predictability, right? So I know that every quarter we're going to check in, we're going to do this thing, and I can rely on that. And that there's some sort of process that feels really grounding, instead of like, I'm going to change this today, and tomorrow I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that. And then there's no change for like 6 months. And then there's like 5 in a row. Like if you can kind of create a cadence and a structure, humans like predictability. We like it. We like stability. We like to know how things are going to go. And so I think having some way of having input and also some consistency over time can really help that sense of, we don't like when things feel out of control. We don't like when things feel chaotic and stressful. So I think the more that we can engage people to be excited about it, but also to feel like they know what to expect, I think that can be really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. Have people excited about the next change, because you've communicated it to them. They know what's coming. They've had input, and sometimes you'll always have people who are not necessarily happy about it, but at least they know. And it's you kind of oftentimes want those naysayers to speak up, because they can be very valuable.
Oh, absolutely.
They provide a service too.
Yeah.
Oh, how is this not going to work? Ralph, tell us, because you're really good at poking holes.
Right. So when we did the Kaizens, we often there was a team of like 10. We would have 1 or 2 naysayers on it intentionally, partly because if they are part of the solution, it's going to be hard to go against it. And sometimes they really are good at pointing out the ways in which we need to kind of problem solve and think outside the box. Or, if we didn't have their input, we might have missed something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the devil's advocates, it's an assigned role. Well, that's cool. I had a question for you. How like with the Best Notary, and you guys want to have a positive social impact, and it's are you consciously deciding well, if we did it this way, we could, have this much margin, or our revenue could be X, but we're going to do it this way. Our revenue will be half of that, but we're achieving this other objective. I mean, a lot of people would say, in capitalism, it's generally like maximize revenue or profits. It's what kind of conversations do you have? Like, how much should we forsake, to have this positive social impact?
It's a really, and we're currently working deeply on our financial model and really thinking through as we go for raising funds, how much money do we need, and how many people are we going to hire, where, and wanting to make sure that we're paying people well. Like, we don't want to set up a model where we make millions and millions of dollars because we're taking advantage of people. That's just not, that's again, back to our mission and values. That doesn't align with our mission and values. And so looking at now, our current margins are really high. So that helps. We have high margins to help offset some things. And we're comfortable with, only having a margin of like 30 or 40%, right? So where do we invest in? So there's multiple things. One of our initiatives is to hire people who haven't had opportunities. So finding the right match for people's skills for different jobs, right? So I was looking at, I don't know, Facebook or LinkedIn or something, and there was this post about this autistic person who went into Walmart and rearranged all of the stacks of things because they were super chaotic, right? You can call that someone who's disabled, or you can call that a great ability. So how do we match people who have really great talents who may not fit in a certain structure, right? So some of it's giving opportunities to people and matching them with the right jobs. That doesn't cost anything, really. That doesn't cost me anything. Finding the right person, finding people who prefer to work from home. They may have some physical limitations but they're great on the phone. That costs me nothing. So some of that is recruiting and creating a culture where I support finding the right match for the right person. We also want to work with legal aid organizations and do some pro bono notarizations because that's part of our values. So there's different parts of our social mission. One is in hiring, one is in creating a certification program for notaries and a mentoring program for notaries so that they can, some people we're going to hire outright and they're going to work for us, and some people want to create their own business and we can license to them the opportunities. And so that they can have their own business and develop. So
franchise?
Sure, franchise licensing, right? So they can use our platform. They can be trained by us. They can get certified by us. They can use our platform as we create it and use the technology that we've developed for their own use. So does that cut into our margins a little bit? Sure. But we feel like there is a big enough market out there. We feel like there are opportunities out there. We've estimated that estate planning alone is like a $16 million opportunity, right? There's opportunity out there. And so we're, it's a funny place to create our own competition in some ways, right? But it's not really competition. We can work together. So we are looking at some pro bono work, and that 10% or more of our notarizations will be to legal aid organizations. But as I said, if we have good margins in other places, we can afford that. And we want to partner with like returning citizens organizations or the freedom makers who are spouses of people who are in the military. There are great organizations who are already working with certain populations, and we can team up with them. So there are things that we can do to do good in the world and to create opportunities that don't cost a lot of money and don't And I think there's good enough margins that we're going to be okay. We were talking about looking at investors, and we may not be the right match for everyone. We may not be, but there are going to be investors who want to align with us, who want to support, an African-American founder and a woman to do well in the world, that we're going to make money, but we also want to do good. And we want people who want to partner with us in that. And I think we're in that space that we want people to feel good about where they work. Right. And we want our clients to feel good about working with us. And so I think it'll be fine. We have a team. I was joking yesterday that we haven't had anyone cry on our team meeting in a while. And that probably sounds terrible. But we have such a great team that when something's happening in someone's life, they share it. Right. One of our team members' dog died, and everyone took a moment to really sit with her and how hard that was. So we are creating a very heart-based organization that cares about people, that Eli talks about it as trusted humans as a service, right? And so we can't have an organization of trusted humans as a service if we are treating our employees and our contractors poorly. That just doesn't align with who we are. So will we make, 10% less on $7-10 million? Okay, fine. Will we feel good about it? Yes. so
your karmic bank account will runneth over.
Exactly. And it'll attract people who want to do work with us, right? There's some conversation about our competition, quote unquote, right? Notarize.com, but they are, first of all, on the customer end of things, when you log in, you have to kind of know what to do, where to put things, and do it yourself, which is not great for someone who's not very knowledgeable about law or technology. And they don't pay their notaries very well. So high volume, low margin, and not really great customer service, and not great to their employees. I don't consider them competition. That's not the kind of business we want to be in. We want to be in a business where we provide the best service and people feel good about what we're doing, and they have confidence in us, and they want us to come back. And by hiring the right people and that people feel good about, that's what they do. We have brand loyalty. People are excited to work with us and feel good about the work we're doing. So yes, but the model, as I'm putting it together, there's such an opportunity before us that I think there's space for that high-end concierge service that we can also do good. So
nice. And I guess full disclosure, my company WorkDone is on the board, advisory board of the Best Notary, and with the longer term plan that we're going to build a lot of the automation. And
yes.
So it's just so it's out there.
It's a full disclosure, yes.
Full disclosure.
Yes, we are very excited, because I want the humans to do the human work. Right now I have humans copying and pasting things from something into a calendar, into an Excel spreadsheet. It would make you sad, Joe. It would really hurt your heart. So I want the humans talking to humans. I want them talking to customers. I want them, I don't want them copying and pasting things into spreadsheets. I want, that can be done by computers. I want the human element to be there so that our customers get to feel that. That's the difference.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's your energetically what you put out is what sort of comes in. And I don't know if we ever talked about it, but WorkDone is a public benefit corporation that we kind of realized our tech was going to work probably a little too well, and we would be aiding in people being let go, put out on the street. And I wanted to have a solution to that problem before we created the problem. So WorkDone in our bylaws percentage of revenue goes to fund a nonprofit called the Work Forward Foundation that basically exists to assist workers in their transition to their next area of, hopefully it's not a 9 to 5, but it's actually something that they're really, that is meaningful to them. And it might be entrepreneurial or not, but
I love that. I love that you're thinking about the positive and maybe not so positive impact of the work that you're doing and how to mitigate any sort of negative impact and give opportunities, because people have skills that they can use in other spaces. And so they may need some support in retraining. And so I'm really glad that you're doing that, because, we want to look at machine learning and AI and all those kinds of things, but we never want to take the human element, and maybe partly because we are a notary business that needs to be a human, but we don't want to take the human element out of things, that there needs to be, sometimes you need to be able to call on the phone and talk to a person. Mm-hmm. Right?
Absolutely. Not
a chat bot, right? And chatbots are fine for certain things, but if I need to answer something, right, I want to talk to a human. I want them to be empathic. I want them to help me solve a problem. And you can't replace that.
Sure.
Yes, I'm looking forward to when we will have our own foundation. You can help me learn more about how to do that, Joe. I'm excited about that.
Happy to have
president.
What's that?
You've already got your president. He's wearing a bow tie.
So. Yes. Yes. Max,
so we've got 8 minutes left. And we got a bunch of questions, Kirsten.
Oh, sorry.
Firstly, I just wanted to, so what it sounds like from my lay person's opinion is that basically shopping with you, Stephanie, will be like, like shopping at Costco versus at Walmart, when you leave and you have that icky feeling and you're like, oh, that wasn't great, like don't like shopping there or don't go there, which is why I don't often shop there, maybe like once a year, if ever, versus like Costco, where you're like, they're printing money over there. And like, you can see it in the workers' eyes, you go to Walmart, look at their dead eyes. You go to Costco, everyone's having a great time. And look it's not like the Costco founders are looking for where their next meal is coming from. I mean, they're billionaires with private jets, like no one's hurting. And it's that, like, exactly to what you said, Stephanie, of like, you don't, obviously paraphrasing, but like, you don't have to be a shitbag in order to be good at business. And obviously I add my own flair to that, cover Max ears. And it's just that, like, you don't have to be. And like, I always use Costco as an example of that. And that's what it feels like you're like with regards to like the other notary company, where like you don't see them as competition. I totally agree with you on that. Like between Walmart and Costco, there is no competition, because like it's clear who people enjoy shopping with. It's that, like, what is the cost of human dignity? And it's corporations like that that are able to say, like, it's called benefits, it's called a decent hourly wage, like, hey, we can actually put a number on it. And so that's like, in that respect, like, I think you guys will be quite successful with your mission, because even if you need a notary at 2 a.m, I'm like, would I rather use the people who are contributing to good, or the people who are like, man, starvation wages, and some guy, car breaking down because he can't afford to fix it because he's not getting paid enough? Like, those type of things do affect people, because you are in such a human to human business. However, I know we have 6 minutes left and I have a few questions left. So, okay, I've got a couple that are in contention here, but the first, okay, you kind of touched on this earlier, and this is why I'm choosing this question, is how can companies ensure their work culture is transparent across all levels? Like, you mentioned the importance of it, but are there like tips or tricks or anything you can inform us in 6 minutes?
Sure. So I think, although it would be really scary to do, what if everyone could see everyone's salary? Right? Now, I will say Eli and I have made a vow to each other that we will cap our salaries, which to me sounds like insane, at $1 million a piece. At like that, like I'm like, I don't need $1 million. Like, that seems crazy to me, but sure, that's easy to agree to, because I'm like, I don't need $1 million a year, but whatever. But if I have something to hide and I'm having this huge salary and it's because everyone else has a low salary, that that doesn't feel right or fair to me, right? And, I've had times where I've had different people, because of circumstances that I inherited, one person had more years of experience and made less than other people, right? And that feels horrible. And there needs to be some way of evening that out. So I think having some transparency on salaries, having people feel good about salaries, right? To your point about Costco, I mean, I think almost 10 years ago, their minimum wage was $15, right? And health insurance, right? So I think that you create those opportunities that everyone knows. At UCSF, I can look up all the people that I work for because it's public, right? I can see what everyone makes. So it creates an interesting dynamic. So I also think that there are ways in which you invite staff to participate at different levels, right? So why not have staff people come to board meetings, right? Why not have, so we have a policy committee that at one point was all like senior management of mental health, but I thought, many of these decisions impact my administrative staff. I need an administrative staff in that meeting. Why are we making decisions that impact other people without having stakeholders? So I think inviting people into different spaces helps with transparency and being able to be honest and open. Now, sometimes that means honest and open about, we're having a bad quarter. The revenue is down right now. And let's be honest about that. And what are we going to do about that? But having respect for people across the organization to share the good and the maybe not so good without scaring, it's a balance. But having respect for people, I think it matters. And people have more trust in you if you can be really honest and be really real. So I think those are a couple things.
So rare. I was reading something of like skin in the game, and there was this this business book, and it was there was this marketing agency they were like, we had a terrible quarter, like costs are high, like what do we do? So they laid it out to everybody, and they basically gave everybody a share of ownership, and suddenly it was like, wow, amazing. Everybody was like able to keep all the work in the organization. They didn't have to use contractors. They had their best year ever. And they've been like taking off and just burning through their competition, like just doing amazing. And it's just like as simple as that. Like they were honest and transparent with like, hey, things aren't great. What are your ideas to fix it? And people were like, no, like keep the work in, don't send it out. And so basically treating people like adults. Like, I know it sounds crazy, but like that's kind of all it is. It's like radical simplicity. Like it isn't that challenging,
Yeah, we had a meeting with our staff recently, and we said, we didn't have a great first quarter, and they were worried. They were worried about their jobs. One of them also said, like, TBN is my company too. Like, I'm worried. And we were talking about spending some money, and she was like, don't spend it because we had a bad quarter. Even though I'd like to receive that, but this is my company too. Because and I think we would like to have our employees be stakeholders, right? Own part of the company. Like this is not about like a couple of people making a bunch of money, right? That's just not our model. So I think if you're open and transparent and honest and respectful, people believe you more, and they're more engaged and more involved and care about what you're doing. So
beautiful. That's fantastic. Wow, I'd like to keep going, but it's 6 o'clock. Any closing thoughts?
I just want to thank both of you. This was a really fun conversation. And I'm really excited that, I joked that COVID was nature's way, Mother Nature's way of saying, sit in your room and take a time out, that we all kind of use this time to take a time out and really think about, as we come out of this, what kind of work do we want to do? What kind of organizations do we want to be? What kind of leaders do we want to be? And I think we need to do something different, and it needs to be a radical shift from what we've had before. And so I'm really hoping that people can do the kind of inner work. I know I'm a psychologist. I go back to that. The inner work within ourselves and in our organizations to think about where are the places that we are dropping the ball, and how can we do better, and how can we do good?
Hear, hear. I mean, we have to, because what we've been doing isn't sustainable.
Mhm.
I'd rather not drive off that cliff.
Yeah, I'd rather not wear a hazmat suit to get the newspaper in 20 years. So maybe that's just me, but sounds great. So.
Well, very good. Stephanie, thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to, what you guys do in the very near future.
Thank you. Thank you. It's very nice to be here. Thank you both.
And Kirsten, as always, you're a treat. A delight. That's right. Sorry. She's always a delight, in case you didn't know.
I remind you. So yeah.
Okay. And everyone out there in the internet land, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you all next week.
Till next time. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Joe. That was fun.
Oh, hey, oh, you're hanging out. Okay.
I was just saying thank you. All right. I'll take care. Bye.
Well, just so you know, it's like we have this closing slide, and we usually leave it up, and then, video editing type stuff. It's how the sausage is made.
Ah, excellent.
Yeah, Stephanie, this was, your story reminded me. Kristen's gonna be mad that she's not on. I actually had a project in an insurance company where I had a team, and one of the guys was from Pakistan, and he went back just to visit his family. And while he was there, he got hepatitis, and he was out for it was bad, like near death, a couple months. And my client was going to axe him, cut him, as he was en route coming back from, Pakistan. And I said, don't do that. I will take my 40 hours that you budgeted and split it with him. So he actually came back to a job, because otherwise he would have been screwed. And he had a wife and a small child, and it was just it was gnarly. And
have compassion. So okay, you fire him, and then you have to go hiring, and you're still going to be without someone for a number of months. It doesn't make sense efficiency, and it doesn't make sense humanity. It's just, that's not how you treat people.
Right. Yeah. Let's fire this person and go hire somebody else and train them up. It's the most expensive option.
Right. Fiscally, it makes no sense. And just from a human perspective, it makes no sense. So, right. But people become very short-sighted.
It's so true. Okay. Well, thank you for I haven't thought about that, and that was, 15 years ago. So
I'm glad you helped him out and donated.
Well, yeah, I can't wait to, start doing some stuff with you guys. It's going to be great.
Looking forward to it.
Okay. And on that note, have a wonderful evening, and say bye to Max for me.
I will. All right. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.